She's still laughing.
That's so funny.
Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Welcome to another episode of 5 Lemons Laughing. Today, yeah, I know. We're talking today about how our identity evolves and shifts and changes over our lifetime. Whether it's being a parent, what happens when you get married, just all the how our identity shifts and changes, how our sense of self-worth is tied to that identity. And is that really who we are? Isn't that the $1 million question?
Yeah. I think, well, this conversation came out of our Mother's Day conversation last week. And we were thinking, well, I was thinking when I became a mother, my identity is just such a natural shift from like you're out there in the world, you're working and producing or like jiving around, and then you have a baby, and a lot of the times you're stuck in the house, you're not working, you really like just are kind of a milk wagon to the baby. I'm not kidding.
Wow, maybe that's
that's only for a short time.
It is for a short time. But like the wall, I have had so many friends, myself included, the walls just kind of come in on you because you've shifted jobs, identity, who you are in the world, that kind of thing. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a transition into a different role. And but it has been very extreme for a lot of people. And me personally, I'm going through perimenopause, menopause. And so that has a whole new transition to it and has a very old definition of what it should be or looks like right now. But luckily that's also changing. And you're not like just going out. I got a lot of like animal references. You're not being put out to pasture, the wagon's not
You're
out
not the old gray mare.
Right. Right. But
That's so funny.
yeah, I do think that there are identity shifts. And so
you have another one coming up too with your youngest son about to graduate high school.
Yes. Empty nester. Yes.
Yeah.
And luckily I have this podcast. So, I have like set things up in my life so that my life's full. Not just like of doing, but just full of stuff that I love. So that I just don't fall off a cliff when my family's gone. So, I just thought we should talk about it and see if you all have had those same kind of feelings and what we do with it.
Love it. Good introduction. Thanks, Melissa.
Yes.
I'm going to let the moms go first because my experience will obviously be totally different.
Mine too, Morgan.
Well, I will say that mine was partially that way. I was a young mother, right? So I had my son my first year out of high school. And I was still living with my mom when I had him. So my mom helped take care of him. But I do remember, so my son was always involved in sports and a lot of activities, very well-rounded academically and athletically, and just was pretty friendly as well, so socially. And I
Gosh, it
remember
sounds just like you, Drusilla.
Mini me.
Well, yes, I guess so. Except for probably I would give him a little more of a tick on the athleticism. I did run track and I was a cheerleader, but like, I don't know. We'd probably have to debate that one. Anyways, so speaking of debates, so by the time he was probably 10 years old, we had this thing going on where he would say, people would call him Drusilla's son, right? Because when you're younger, more people knew me than knew him. And he always said, well, one day they're going to know you as Tariq's mom. Right. So, and that is a part of identity, right? That's a part of, yes. Like, so when he did go through his teenage years and being involved in all the activities and going to the school and all of that, that's who I became. Right. Everybody would be like, that's Tariq's mom. That's Tariq's mom. It's like this interesting thing, dynamic. And I don't think that I probably would have noticed if it wasn't something that he brought up at a very pretty young age, actually, you know. But yeah, it's very interesting, the dynamic of parenting and identity. I do feel like I put a lot of who I was into him, especially through getting through high school. And I think it was after that that I realized that I probably need to start focusing more on myself. And I didn't get married until actually after he graduated high school. So
Wow.
yeah, and I had a very dear friend of mine that said to me once, you're probably going to get married right after he graduates high school. And I think what it was is that she saw the relationship and she saw how we were just a yin and yang kind of thing. And we just had it down and we were going to be fine as long as we were just by ourselves. And yes. And so I was probably aware of that too. And so, yeah, he was off in college by the time I got married. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that about the transition from him being your son to you being his mom. No, that's really an interesting way to look at it. I never thought of that before. So I'm curious though, Melissa, I got a question for you. So I'm a little confused, but maybe I'm not really confused. I just want to have clarity around when you said that when after you had your kids, did you like stay home and you didn't work?
Right. But
Wow,
so
lucky you.
my sister and I had babies at the same time, like within a month
Mhm.
of each other. She was a
wow.
full-time career person and I was a stay-at-home mom. Um,
Wow.
and but we were both in the house, our own homes. She was in San Francisco, I was in Denver, and we would just talk on the phone and talk about like I know she struggled quite a bit with like being completely out of the workforce. She was just on maternity leave, but like um her world just went from a lot of people, a lot of action, a lot of stuff going on to like one baby sitting on her lap, trying to breastfeed. And also when it's your first child, you're so like wrapped up in getting all this stuff right that you're like you're so focused on just that one little person, right? And it's all beautiful and wonderful, but
I heard that bud coming. Just like you said it.
and no, it's a but.
And it's a
big
shitload of
butt.
work. It's a shitload of work.
Yeah, I mean, you change, and I also think like just having a little person that all of a sudden you're responsible for, and you know this is it forever. Like it doesn't, you will have this role forever. It can be overwhelming. And
Mhm.
I just don't think I had a lot of support. And I don't think my sister had a lot of support. And I think that we both didn't have like mothers and aunts and grandmothers and all that around us helping us out. It was like, oh my God, how do I do this?
You
And
didn't have your village.
I didn't have the village. And we had a lot of friends, and I had a lot of girlfriends, but it was very isolating. That's the word. Very isolating.
Yeah.
And I was very unsupported. And so that to me stands out as a transition that was very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
What,
So
what I
thanks for.
hear, and sorry, Penny, go ahead.
Go ahead, Morgan.
What I hear, and this is maybe from my point of view, so it may not be accurate to your experience or your sister's experience, but in addition to all the weight of this new lifelong responsibility that you now are saddled with, there's also this
Another reference to the farm.
There's
Another
also
animal
this
reference.
awareness.
Yeah.
There's also this awareness that the world continues to go on
Yes.
without you,
Yes.
like at her work and like socially, and like everything else is still moving along. It's like, do I even matter except for to this new tiny child? And
Absolutely.
it even brought up to me when I left my job of 17 years, because I was damn good at my job, but I was totally replaceable too. You know what I mean? And like everyone is, but it's very like humbling to like experience that. And I feel like that might have been kind of what your sister was experiencing during her leave. Like,
Nailed it.
going on business with is going on as usual with or without me.
Mm-hmm. You nailed it.
So Penny, I can't wait to hear your story.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that when I turned 30, my biological clock was ticking so freaking loud. I had waited until I was you remember the story way back in another podcast where at 19 I was called an old maid. So I
old
really
gray mare, old maid.
Old gray mare just ain't what she used to
be. Ain't what she used to be. Yeah. Anyway, so
she is.
So I guess I wanted to travel the world and do stuff before I got married and had kids. And so I didn't have my first daughter until I was 32, almost 33 years old. And so speaking of having a village, my older sister, Jacqueline, she's 8 years older than me. I moved out to California from North Dakota. Well, I took a scenic route, Arizona, New Mexico, then California. Anyway, I moved out to California to be near her because she was like my mentor. And I think somewhere in my mind, I decided she was going to help me raise my kids, right? And so she unfortunately got this really rare form of cancer. And when, she really wanted to have children, and then she had to have a hysterectomy, and so she couldn't have any kids. And I guess they could have adopted, but So she decided, I think, to live vicariously through me. And so I was so appreciative of having that support, like you were talking about, Melissa, that was missing for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that Jacqueline had always been like a mother figure to me because she was 8 years older. And so I was just like thrilled. Like she would, when Larry and I wanted to get away, she would come and watch the kids. I had my stepson David came to live with us when he was 5 years old, and that's when Samantha was born. So I had 2 kids in 1 year, but one was like 5 and the other was a newborn. Anyway, so and then Hannah came along 4 years later, and Jacqueline was a really big part of her life too. And then Jacqueline died. Mm-hmm. And that was such a loss for me that she passed away, because I really depended on her to help me raise my kids. Because I don't know, I felt like it was almost like not my duty, but it was like part of have her helping her to have a full experience of having children. And so I was really like grateful that I could do that. And I was okay with her helping me raise my kids because she was amazing. She was just an amazing woman. And so she helped me see things in ways that I didn't see it always. And that always helped me. So, and another thing I wanted to just confirm, the reason why I asked you if you stayed home, Melissa, is because I only stayed home for 3 months and then I went back to work. And I can tell you the week or so, 2 weeks before I went back to work, they moved my job from San Jose to San Francisco, and I lived in San Jose. And so I had everything set up. I was going to go home at lunch. I was in outside sales. I was going to go home at lunch and nurse or to the babysitter and nurse Samantha. And then she wouldn't have to have so many bottles and I wouldn't have to pump so much. And then everything just changed. And that was a big transition to go back to work and then be I think I took the train. I can't remember if I took the train to San Francisco, but it was a drive, an hour drive at least or more in the morning to get to where I needed to go to. So everything just changed, and it was a big adjustment. And I cried and cried and cried, and I thought, why am I going back to work? But we had just started our medical device company at that time, and so my job was providing all the benefits and actually the income for us to pay our bills. So it was part of my, I guess it was part of my, I don't want to say responsibility, but that was part of my partnership in the whole thing, was to help us keep socking the money back into the company so that we could continue to grow it. And so, it was interesting, but I did have help for, I would say 8 years with my sister, Jacqueline. And so that was really awesome. And then my brother lived here then later. And so he also was our nanny. And so, it's really helpful when you have family to help you raise your children. It really is. Like you had your mom, Drusilla. That's awesome.
And my sisters were like, we all lived like 5 minutes from my mom's house at the time. So I had sisters and nieces and all over the place to help.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Question for you mothers. How did it affect your self-esteem? Like talking about the identity. Do you felt like you lost yourself? And when did you rediscover it? Like I would really super interested to hear about that.
I did. Yeah. I just felt like I really didn't have much of an identity that I was confident in besides, the mothering that I was doing. Like it was, for me, I had postpartum depression. Maybe that made it a bigger thing, but like it was, I just kind of think a lot of people experience like going from high school to college, that it's a big transition. It's a big transition to like all of a sudden raise yourself and get your own meals and all that kind of stuff. To me, it was a drastic change, like kind of like that, like what just happened? And again, it turned out to be nice. I did have postpartum depression, so it was hard at first. But I think, I was getting so much outside influence about my self-esteem or about my identity. And then when I isolated with this baby, it was like a vacuum. It just was hollow. It wasn't there. And then you add the postpartum depression, you add like, there's so much pressure, like when you first become a mom, like you have to breastfeed and are you going to let the kid cry it out or not? There's all this stuff that you kind of have to deal with. And it's the first time you've done it. And yeah, my identity just disappeared.
Wow. That's amazing. I just can't even imagine that for you, Melissa, because I just see you as a totally different person now. Like you got it going,
Oh, thank
So
you. Well, I think I really have learned, you know, I've grown up and I'm hopefully a little wiser. And I do know, I think, and when I put when I rely on the outside to identify me, then the rug can quickly be pulled out from underneath me. So I think it's
good point.
been on really trying to grow spiritually, that I have not had to look outside myself as much.
When do you think that shifted? Like how far into motherhood did that shift?
I would say probably 10 years ago. So like my last, so my first son's 21. Cause it, again, like, and maybe because I was a stay-at-home mom and that was just my like identity,
Mm,
it was just, I didn't have outside jobs and stuff that, um, talk about being like somebody's mother. Like that's just what my identity kind of was.
I have a
wow.
question, Melissa. I know what postpartum depression is, or at least I've heard of it, right? But I don't know exactly what the root of it is. And maybe it does have to do with identity. Do you know, like, did you go through therapy and do you understand what triggers postpartum depression?
Definitely hormonal. And it's just like I felt it and I understood it to be like just the hormones just got sucked out of me when I had my baby. And then, I explain it like if my body can make a human being, then when there's no human being in there, my body has to like bounce back. It just it has to go through something pretty massive. And for me, it was postpartum depression. And Um, it was really bad, and it was really sad because you bring home a baby and you're like, "This is what you've wanted for so long," and you bring home this baby and you're like, "No, somebody else has to hold this baby." And then I was, really, like, fearful that I was gonna mess up or do something or drop him, and so it was like all this turmoil, and, then all the judgment came, like, you wanted this baby for so long and this is the most perfect beautiful baby and now this is how you deal with it. um it was just such a spiral. It was very hard.
Wow. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds really overwhelming.
It was overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I always try to be available, like when I have a niece who just had a baby and I always check in, like, how are you feeling? It's okay if you don't feel 100% like totally elated that you had this baby, because I really feel like my experience, now I can see I came through it. And when you're in it, like any other kind of depression, you just do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you just need that support system to tell you there's a light, there's a light, hold on. So, but I think it compounds because you have a baby and you're super tired and
Yeah.
your body's healing and you've just been through a birth and as a human being has just come out of your body. And, and, and then for me, my husband, I was a single parent. I wasn't, but it was like I was a single parent for probably the first 10 years. So I just felt like I was alone.
Mhm.
So, but then I got through it and then it was like, I feel so blessed to have had the experience of being a mom. So,
Yeah. So I kind of had a different experience than what you did, Melissa.
it reminds me of that Ryan Reynolds on Saturday Night Live. Have you seen that skit where he gets abducted? and someone's like saying this beautiful, you got to watch it. And he's telling all this beautiful experience. And then there's the woman who's like, well, that wasn't my experience. And she got abducted by aliens, and it was a completely terrible experience. Anyways, you got to watch it. It's very funny.
I'm going to look it up right after we're done. So I just poured myself into my kids. I would say that's how I lost my identity a bit, is that I did everything. Like I was the room mom. They were in sports at 4 and 5 years old, and they were, I was the team mom. I was, and I worked. And so I was just like totally burning the candle at both ends. And I realized that now, 30 years later, that I was like way overdoing it. And I think it was partially because I wanted to prove to the world that I was a good mom, and that, good moms participate with their kids, and they do all this stuff, and they bring the hot dogs and the sodas or the juice boxes or the fruit, the cut up oranges, all beautifully cut up. And so I had a lot of perfectionism running too, just to, and then there were some moms like that were just freaking crazy. I mean, they bring tablecloths and tables and have it all set up with, I'm like going, I can't compete with this. There was a lot of competition, I think, in when I was raising my kids. And we went to this really wonderful private school that was new to our town. And it's like where I couldn't even begin to compete with, not that it's a competition, but it felt like a competition, to keep up with making sure that the birthday party was, the most awesome thing with all these different crafts and the pool party and all this stuff. So I think I realized during that time that I needed to take care of myself more, but I wasn't quite sure how to do that. And so it's been about 15 years, or about maybe 15 or 17 years, that I've been, on the path of really seeking and coming back to who I truly am, versus being the mother that was the high achiever. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, mothers.
Yeah.
So how would you help someone if you're a friend who is, let's say that their kids are just graduating from high school and they are like, now what, right? My whole life has been about the juice boxes or whatever. I don't have kids, right?
Yeah.
If your whole life
are really important,
clearly I'm going to get a juice box. So, So what would you say to those people, to those women out there that are like, oh, what now?
Yeah. It's called empty nester.
Yeah.
It's a big transition.
Yeah. So how did you get your identities back if you lost them, or maybe not back? You guys know what I'm saying. Drusilla, we haven't heard from you in a while. And Morgan, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you, but I think you and I have a different take on this whole thing. Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to say first that for me, it would be juice boxes and Hot Pockets.
Okay.
Well, my son would have to have Hot Pockets before I could get finished with dinner.
Funny.
But for me, it probably wasn't as big a transition, because I still, being a single parent and being younger, my son and I kind of grew up together. Mm-hmm. And so I still had my best friends could practically say they helped me raise my son, right? Mm-hmm. Because they would be coming over to hang out with us at the house. And so my son was around us all the time. we'd take him to the park with us. So, if there was a concert in the park, then he would go with us. It was just the way it was for us. Mm-hmm. So when he left to go, nothing really changed that much for me when he left to go to college. It really didn't, because I already had a full social life and I was working in the office. I had just started telecommuting from home, maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week or something. So on all fronts, I'd say it was pretty well balanced, that it wasn't a big transition, not identity-wise. I will say the thing that impacted me the most was realizing one day that if I didn't come home, nobody cared. Mm-hmm. Like there was nobody there to care if I never came home. And you have to realize I never knew that, because I went straight from my mom's house to having my son and moving out of her home. And I'd never been in a place where nobody was there and nobody would be there to care if I came home or not. And so that was a big eye-opening experience for me. To know that if something truly happened to me in my home, no one might find out for a day or two or something. And that kind of scared me a little, those kind of realizations. But it wasn't earth-shattering or anything like that.
So what do you think it was that kept your sense of self, that steady through all of that?
Actually, I would have to say it was my son that kept me grounded. I can't say that it was what kept me grounded in terms of my identity. It was just grounded as a person, as a human being, and becoming the best person I could be in front of him. Mm-hmm. And I think a little bit of what Penny was saying, proving yourself, there was some of that I needed to prove, that even though I had him at an early age, that I could still be a good mom and I could still do and be all the things, because, I did still go to college while raising him at the same time. So the story is
That's
way
amazing.
different than the initial picture I painted, right? So yeah, I went to school. I went to college full time while he was, right when he started kindergarten. I went to college full time. We going to school at the same time. So it was just this life that we had, and it was all about making sure that he saw that I could still get this done. Just giving him a good example to live by. And yeah, with that, I was still able to just have some pretty solid friendships. They were the same people that I went to high school with, and they went off to college, but every time they came home, they were hanging at my house over the weekend. It was just, it was different than the average person my age. But I think maybe maintaining those friendships with those girls that did go off to college, and I could kind of live that vicariously through them. And then having my own college experience as a single parent, that it didn't just seem so far-fetched, and it didn't seem as awful as I envisioned it, of course, when I was pregnant and thinking, oh my God, I can't go off to college with everybody else. My life is going to end, and all of this dramatics that I certainly went through. That I think having those people around me and having all of the support and everything just helped me remain level-headed and grounded, I think.
That's awesome, Drusilla. I think when my kids went to college, I was like, yay.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter was a competitive tennis player. And so every weekend we were at tennis tournaments, and it was a grind. It was a grind, sitting all day long, sometimes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday watching her play, which was a good thing. That means she was performing and winning. but it got, kind of got older. Our youngest daughter just turned 26, and they were talking, Samantha and Hannah were talking about their relationship over the years and how it's grown, and it's so much better now, as they're 30 and 26. And Hannah said, yeah, I just really I was required to go to all your tennis matches, and I hated that. And that's why she didn't really enjoy Samantha so much, because she was required to do all, and I said to them, I go, well, I just wanted us to be together as a family, and that was what I wanted. And I didn't think to consider that maybe Hannah doesn't want this too, and I didn't give her a choice. I mean, she was a little kid. So sometimes we make our kids do things that they don't want to do just because that's what we're doing. And so, yeah, but I was happy when they went to college, because that meant that my responsibilities kind of became less. They never ended, but they became less.
Well, I have a question for Melissa. Is there anything that you learned from that experience of the dramatic shifting in your identity over the years and through the different scenarios with being a parent, becoming a parent?
Well, thank you for the question. I would say that I really do feel like I had to be there to get here, and that it's just part of the journey, and it, I just learned a lot. I learned a lot. I think I may be one of those people who learns from contrast, like big contrast. And so I think some things had to get really bad for me to go, oh, this doesn't work. Like in relationships, when you give up your whole identity for someone, oh, that doesn't work, So it's the same thing. It just, my relationship was with this baby, or my relationship, was focused on who I was trying to be as a mom, or that kind of thing, and not, an outside person. But yeah, I also think it has given me like a lot of compassion for people.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like in a way, it's like a beneficial experience for spiritual progress, because like ultimately we are trying to disidentify with this identity. So it's like it kind of forced you into a position where you had to like evaluate your identity.
Yes.
Which could be helpful.
Well, and also, I think also we don't realize, we kind of just sometimes go through life and we don't claim like what makes us happy, what makes us sad, where our boundaries are, that kind of thing. And I think I just had to float around in some muck and figure out, oh, that it doesn't make me happy to be isolated. It doesn't make me happy to try to struggle with this on my own. And there are alternative ways I can do this. So, and that's why, like, I talk about menopause a lot with my friends and stuff, because why we're all going through it. And so might as well talk about it and figure out really great solutions and share our healing and that kind of thing. Then the isolation for me does not work.
Yeah. I think we need to bring back the village.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a podcast with 5 women.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for our village.
Me too.
Yes, I am too.
And thank you for indulging the moms on this call, because it is sometimes a big identity crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all good. like you said, Melissa, it's all about just it's the stuff we have to go through to get to where we're at today. Everything that we've experienced has created who we are at this very, very moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all in our perspective, right? We can look at it as if it's the worst thing that ever happened to us and be a victim, or we can look at it as if, wow, I am so happy that I had that experience because now I have compassion and understanding for others. Now I can reach out to my relatives when they have babies and come from a totally different space than one, so that's the beautiful part about all of this. And it's our choice on how we can have it be it can have us have a positive possible future, or it can have us have a victimhood forever.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be together if we wanted to be a victim forever, right? That's not how our that's not how our village rolls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody listening to this podcast right now, you would not be listening if you wanted to live in that victimhood.
Yep.
So we just have a few minutes left. So what was the best tool to switch out of, like, my identity is gone now. Now what?
Community. Sharing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bringing
I would
people
say no
in.
matter how difficult it gets to juggle, just remember self first. Self first, self-preservation.
Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah. And like we just have heard that in the last 10 years or so. But yeah, in essence, you have to, take care of yourself and trust that everything else will fall into place.
Yes.
Sometimes I would hide in our pantry and the kids would be yelling for me. So I think the biggest tip that I can have is take some time for yourself.
Go hide in the pantry.
Even if it has to be in the pantry.
Put that on a Post-it, Penny.
Okay, I will. But it was.
And don't forget to have fun while doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that probably helped that I was so young, that I was still just having fun. I didn't mind going to the amusement parks. Shit, I needed to go myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Beautiful.
I want to share a quote that you made me think of, Penny, when you said that it's all perfect. It's all got us to this exact moment. This is a Rumi quote. If God said, Rumi, pay homage to everything that has helped you enter my arms, there would not be one experience of my life, not one thought, not one feeling, nor any act I would not bow to. I just love that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Even the postpartum, Melissa.
Yep. Because I wouldn't have had postpartum if I didn't have my baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So much great stuff again, ladies. I just love how it just kind of poof. We just exploded.
It went by so fast.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of the very first thing is I started thinking of David Bowie's song Changes.
Yeah.
But then I looked up the lyrics and it didn't apply. So I thought I wouldn't bring it up, but I did write that. And then, of course, I loved when you said that motherhood builds compassion and understanding, Melissa. I just really love that. And it takes a village, and we love our lemonettes. Yes, we do. And then, of course, I had to do hide in the pantry, take time for yourself. Sometimes you need to take time for yourself. So that's a wrap. Episode 74 is on it's done. It's a wrap. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. And I wanted to check in and see if anybody has any announcements, anything exciting coming up for you, or any accomplishments or anything that you'd like to share.
yes. So I have my movie premiere coming
Yay.
up May 23rd. So if any of you are in the Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina area, come out and join us. The tickets are on Eventbrite, and we will share a link as well. The name of the film is Loyalty Over Everything, and it's about my niece who was a music promoter, and she passed away in 2020 at 31 years of age, just on the brink of success. So it's a beautiful story, and I hope you can join me.
Wow.
I wish I was
So
there.
exciting.
Yay!
Yeah, me too.
So amazing, Drusilla. And I also want to announce that just before we recorded this episode, I was a graduate of the Conscious Uncoupling Coaches certification. So I'm now
Good
dual
job.
certified with Catherine Woodward Thomas as a Calling in the One and a Conscious Uncoupling coach. And I will soon be on her directory. And I will post that when that's done. So that's a big, huge 2 years of work. And I'm so grateful that I did it and it's done. That relief, like when my
Right.
kids went to
Proud of
college.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Talk
So,
about a transition. Letting go of a relationship is a huge transition.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And there's lots of great tools to make it conscious and beautiful. And yeah. So anyway, thank you all for trusting us to come here and spend time with us, so that you can learn more about how to really just awaken to the truth of who you are through some of our experiences. We just really appreciate that you've taken the time to listen, and you can catch us on podcast platforms, social media platforms, and fivelemonslaughing.com. And so thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week with another compelling and riveting episode. Stay tuned.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.